The sun greeted the fishermen as they left their village and entered their canoes. They shared stories, but one of them said the forest seemed closer to the coast. Some laughed and said he was imagining things, but others mentioned they also noticed the change, and the group realized their coastline was disappearing. They didn't know a fish was eating their island. And this is Legends from the Pacific. Aloha! Hafa Adai, and thank you for joining us. This is Legends from the Pacific, episode 62, The Chamorro's Island-Eating Fish. I am Kamuala Kaneshiro, a native Hawaiian professional writer, speaker, and Comic-Con panelist with extensive film and television experience. I study mythology, I've encountered unusual things, and I'm a geek. You can support us by getting 2 or 3 of your friends to listen to our show. This simple request goes a long way in helping us grow our show. Later in this episode, your featured song and Hawaiian word, but first, Guam. Located east of the Philippines and north of Papua New Guinea lies Guam. It is believed Guam was settled by the Chamorro people around 3,500 years ago. Then, in 1521, Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan stumbled upon Guam while looking for the Western Sea route to Indonesia for Spain. Spain colonized Guam, then over 300 years later, in 1899, America acquired Guam after the Spanish-American War. In 1941, hours after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese captured Guam and subjected its inhabitants to forced labor, incarceration, torture, and execution. 2.5 years later, in 1944, American forces recaptured Guam and has remained a major strategic asset. As of this recording, Guam remains an unincorporated territory of the United States. Due to the island's proximity to the international dateline, Guam has been considered as where America's Day begins. But I'd like to point out Guam's official motto is the land of the Chamorro. A couple of things I find interesting about Guam is their stone pillars that populate the island and Guam's silent forests. Okay, the stone pillars are called ladystones. Ladystones are made of 2 parts. The base is sort of a rounded rectangle, while the top is a half circle. The ladystones remind me of the Holy Grail from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, just a lot bigger, since they can range from a couple of feet to taller than a person. Ladystones have been found throughout Guam, usually in sets of 6, in 2 rows consisting of 3 ladystones parallel to each other. The ladystones played an important part in Chamorro culture because they were foundational pillars, like stilts, for the Chamorro homes. While similar stone columns were found in other cultures of the region, perhaps the most interesting find was an Indonesian temple, which has a stone carving depicting ladystones supporting a house with Chamorro people sitting in the house's shade. This Indonesian temple was created around 850 CE or Common Era. Now, if you walk through Guam's forests, you'll notice how eerily silent it is. And this is because brown tree snakes ate the island's birds. Some theorize the brown tree snakes were introduced to Guam to control rats or mongoose, who were brought in to deal with the rats. but reports stated the brown tree snakes were accidentally transported aboard cargo ships shortly after World War II. There's been attempts to reduce the amount of brown tree snakes, which has not only decimated Guam's birds, but also threatened people. In fact, there's so many snakes, it's estimated a power outage occurs every 4 days because a brown tree snake found its way onto a power line. The following is a Legends from the Pacific original story and is based on cultural records. The fishermen wondered what caused the middle of their beloved island to narrow, and if left unchecked, their island would become two. Soon, they discovered a fish was eating their island. They cast their nets and captured the fish, but the fish chomped through the nets and swam into the ocean's depths. The men returned to the village. Their families were shocked to see them home so soon, and were horrified to hear about the fish threatening their beloved island. The men consulted their village elder on how to deal with the disruptive fish, while the women left the village and decided to pretty themselves up for their men. The women gathered lemons and used its oils in their hair as they bathed in the lake, then returned to comfort their men. The following day, the men went to their canoes. Lemon peels filled the shore and rolled in the surf. The men returned to the village and asked the women if they went to the beach. The women haven't left the village since going to the lake yesterday. The men asked to be taken to the lake, and the women abided. Lemon peels along the lake's edge matched the ones along the shore. The villagers concluded the fish eating their island was not swimming back out to sea, but lived in a cave under the island that was connected to the lake. However, they still didn't know how to catch the fish, since it destroyed their nets. The village elder stepped forward. Our woman's beautiful hair is enchanted. If it were a net, the fish wouldn't break through it. The women were willing to sacrifice their hair for their island. The men left them as they began cutting their hair and braiding the net. They sang to pass the time. Splashing disrupted their song. The fish surfaced to see what the singing was, but when the women stopped, the fish returned to the lake's depths. The women told the men, and when the net was done, the village readied themselves to catch the fish. The women sang to lure the fish. When it surfaced, the men cast the net made of hair. The fish chomped the net, but the woman's enchanted hair was too strong, and the fish was defeated. Guam was saved, thanks to the Chamorro men and women. Send me your unusual Pacific encounters via our feedback link in our show notes, and they may be shared on future episodes. Today, it is said Guam's unique shape is credited to the fish in this episode's story. The story was adapted into the 2015 animated short film Maisa, the Chamorro girl who saved Guam, which was spoken in the Chamorro language, and the version I saw was subtitled in English. Flights from Guam to Honolulu are searched to ensure no snakes stowed away. Snakes have been found, but they're dealt with before they could endanger Hawaii's ecosystem or planes heading to California. I'm sure you got that movie reference. As of this recording, I'm proud to say Hawaii remains snake-free. though my Chamorro friends are not fans of hiking Hawaii's trails because the birds are too loud and annoying. As for the Lati stones, engineers agreed these pillars are ideal for combating earthquakes and tsunamis which occur in Guam. And the Lati stones remain an important symbol of Chamorro culture. If you like what you heard, please give us a rating and share Legends from the Pacific with your friends and family. I'd really appreciate it.
Our theme song is Mystery by Tavana, courtesy of High Sessions. Sound effects were by Sound Effects Factory. Our music coordinator is Matt Duffy, aka DJ Triple Bypass. Links and show notes can be found on our website, legendsfromthepacific.com.
Mahalo nui loa, Ren, for helping us with our credits and supporting our show. That was Ren Shepard, our #1 ranked Patreon supporter. Also, mahalo to Ren's husband, Scott. I enjoy randomly rewarding our Patreon supporters. This is in addition to their Patreon benefits. You too can join the fun and help support our show, so become a Legends from the Pacific Patreon supporter today. Your featured song is Hoo Hoo by Kale Gamiao and Singto Numchuck, courtesy of High Sessions. Legends from the Pacific was written, produced, and edited by me, Kamuela Kaneshiro. I also wrote our original stories. Your featured Hawaiian word is lauoho. Lauoho means hair. An example of lauoho is the Addams family's cousin It was a creature made of lauoho. Once again, lauoho is Hawaiian for hair. Thank you once again for listening. Mahalo and a hui ho.
And just never mind, let's get together now.